Hi everyone, I am Dr.V.VIJI, Associate Professor of Economics, PG and Research Department of Economics, A.D.M.COLLEGE for Women, Hospital. Today we will discuss foreign exchange rate. Now we have to see the introduction of foreign exchange rate. The foreign exchange rate or exchange rate is the rate at which one country is exchanged for another. It is the price of one currency in terms of another currency. It is customary to define the exchange rate as the price of one unit of the foreign currency in terms of the domestic currency. The exchange rate between the dollar and the pound refers to the number of dollars required to purchase a pound. Thus, the exchange rate between the dollar and the pound from the US viewpoint is expressed as $2.50, that is equal to pound 1. The Britishers would express it as the number of pounds required to get $1. And the above exchange rate would be shown as 0.40 pound, that is equal to $1. The exchange rate of $2.5, that is equal to 1 pound, or 0.40 equal to $1 will be maintained in the world foreign exchange market by arbitrage. Arbitrage refers to the purchase of a foreign currency in a market where its price is low and to sell it in some other market where its price is high. The effect of arbitrage is to remove differences in the foreign exchange rate of currencies. That there is a single exchange rate in the world foreign exchange market if the exchange rate is $2.48 in the London exchange market and $2.5 in the New York exchange market. Foreign exchange speculators known as arbitrage will buy pounds in London and sell them in New York, thereby making a profit of 2 cents in each pound. As a result, the price of pounds in terms of dollars rises in the London market and falls in the New York market. Determination of equilibrium exchange rate. The exchange rate in a free market is determined by the demand of and supply of foreign exchange. Equilibrium exchange rate is the rate at which the demand for foreign exchange equals to supply of foreign exchange. Other words, it is the rate which clears the market for foreign exchange. Ragnar Nargis defined the equilibrium of exchange rate as that rate which over a certain period of time keeps the balance of payments in equilibrium. There are two of determining the equilibrium exchange rate. The rate of exchange between dollars and pounds can be determined either by the demand and supply of dollars with the price of dollars is pounds, or by the demand of supply of pounds with the price of pounds in dollars. Whatever method is adopted, it yields the same result. The analysis that follows is based on the dollar price in terms of pounds. The demand for foreign exchange. The demand for foreign exchange is a derived demand from pounds. It arises from import of British goods and services into the US and from capital movements from the US to Britain. In fact, the demand for pounds implies a supply of dollars. When the US businessmen buy British goods and services and make it, foreign exchange rate. Capital transferred to Britain, they create demand for British pounds in exchange for US dollars because they cannot make payment to Britain in their currency. The US dollars, the demand curve for pounds, demand is downward sloping from left to right. In figure 1, it implies that the lower exchange rate on pounds, the larger will be the quantity of pounds demanded in the foreign exchange. market and vice versa. This is because a lower exchange rate on pounds make British exports of goods and services cheaper in terms of dollars. The opposite happens if the exchange rate on pound is higher. It will make British goods and services dearer in terms of dollars, and the demand for pounds will fall. The supply of foreign exchange. The supply of foreign exchange in our case is the supply of pounds. It arises from the US exports of goods and services and from capital movements. From the US to Britain, pounds are offered in exchange for dollars because British holders of bonds wish to make payments in dollars. Thus, the supply of foreign exchange reflects the quantities of pounds that would be supplied in the foreign exchange market at various dollar price of pounds. Here we have to see the demand and supply of foreign exchange rate. It is equal at the level of the equilibrium. At the same time, we have to see other four more equilibriums in the figure, that is A, B, G and H. The supply of foreign exchange in our case is the supply of pounds. It arises from the US exports of goods and services and from capital movements from the US to Britain. Pounds are offered in exchange for dollars because British holders of pounds wish to make payment in dollars. Thus, the supply of foreign exchange reflects the quantities of pounds that would be supplied in the foreign exchange market at various dollars prices of pounds. Below the supply curve for pounds SS is an upward sloping curve as shown in figure 1. It is a positive function of the exchange rate on pounds. As the exchange rate on pounds increases, the greater is the quantity of pounds supplied in the foreign exchange market. This because with the increase in the dollar price of pounds, US goods and services and capital funds become better bargain to holders of funds. Therefore, the holders of pounds will offer larger quantities of pounds with the increase in the exchange rate. But the shape of supply curve of foreign exchange will be given the demand and supply curves of foreign exchange. The equilibrium exchange rate is determined where DD, the demand curve for pounds, intersect SS, the supply curve of pounds. They cut each other at point E in figure 1. The equilibrium rate is OR and OQ of foreign exchange is demanded. The supplied at OR exchange rate, the US demand for pounds equals the British supply of pounds and the foreign exchange market is clear. At any higher rate than this, the supply of pounds would be larger than the demand for pounds, so that some people who wish to convert pounds into dollars will be unable to do so. The price of macroeconomic theory, pounds will fall, less pounds will be supplied and more will be demanded. Ultimately, the equilibrium rate of exchange will be re-established in figure 1. When the exchange rate increases to OR, the supply of pounds RB is greater than RA. The demand for pounds will be fall in the price of pounds. The equilibrium exchange rate OR is again established at point E. On the contrary, at an exchange rate lower than this, say OR, the demand for pounds R21 is greater than the supply of pounds RG. Some people who want pounds will not be able to get them. The price of pounds will rise, which will reduce the demand and increase the supply of pounds. Theories of foreign exchange rate. Here we have to see two important theories. One is the min parity theory, determination under gold standard. This theory is associated with the working of the international gold standard. Under this system, the currency in use was made of gold or was convertible into gold at a fixed rate. The value of the currency unit was defined in terms of certain weight of gold. That this, so many grains of gold to the rupee, the dollar, the pound, etc. The central bank of the country was always ready to buy and sell gold at the specified price. The rate official British money of the country was convertible into gold was called the mint price of gold. If the official British price of gold was £6 per ounce and the US price of gold led the mint price of the mixed at the respective countries. The exchange rate between 536 per ounce they were would be $36 and 6.6 pounds. This rate was called the mint parity or mint par of it was posted on the mint price of gold. Thus, under the gold standard, the normal or exchange because it was equal to the ratio of their mint bar value. That is, R is equal to dollar bar pound. Now we have to see the assumption of this theory. This theory is based on the following assumptions. The price of gold is fixed by a country in terms of its currency. It buys and sells gold in any amount at that price. Its supply of money consists of gold and paper currency which backed by gold. Its price level varies directly with its money supply. There is movement of gold between countries. Capital is mobile within countries. The adjustment mechanism is automatic. Given these assumptions, the exchange rate under the gold standard is determined by the forces of demand and supply between the gold points and is prevented from moving outside the gold points by shipments of gold. Figure 3 shows the determination of the exchange rate under the gold standard. The exchange rate or issue up at point at where the demand and supply curve, demand DD and SS, intersect. The exchange rate need not beat the mint parity. It can be anywhere between the gold points depending on the shape of the demand and supply curve. The mint parity is simply meant to define the US gold export points and the US gold import points. Since the US Treasury is prepared to sell any quantity of gold at a price of $36 per ounce, no American would pay more than $6.3 per pound because he can get any quantity of pounds at that price by exporting gold. That is why the US supply curve of pounds become perfectly elastic or horizontal at the US gold export point. This is shown by the historical portions of the supply curve. Similarly, as the US Treasury is prepared to buy any quantity of gold at $36 per ounce, no American would sell pounds less than $5.97 because he can sell any quantity of pounds at the price by gold imports. Thus, the US demand curve for the pounds become perfectly elastic at the US gold import point. This is given in the figure. Now, let us see the criticism of this mint parity theory. The mint parity theory has been criticized on the following grounds. The international gold standard does not exist now, however, since it broken down after the depression of the 1930s. The theory is based on the assumption of free buying and selling of gold and its movement between countries. But governments do not allow such sales, purchase and movements. The theory fails to explain the determination of exchange rates as most countries are an inconvertible 530 paper standard. This theory assumes flexibility of internal prices, but modern governments follow independent sticky price policy unrelated to fluctuations in exchange rate. The min parity theory has long been discarded ever since the gold standard broken down. No country is on the gold standard now. Neither free movements of gold nor gold parities. The purchasing power parity theory was developed by Godso Casual in 1920 to determine the exchange rate between countries on inconvertible paper currencies. The theory states that equilibrium exchange rate between two inconvertible paper currencies is determined by the equality of the relative change in relative prices in the two countries. In other words, the rate of exchange between two countries is determined by their relative price levels. There are two versions of purchasing power parity theory, the absolute and the relative. The absolute version states that the exchange rate between two countries should be equal to the ratio of the price index in the two countries. The formula is RBP bar P, where RAN is the exchange rate between two countries A and B, and VAPAR refers to the price index. This version is not used because it ignores transportation cost and other factors which hindered trade, non-traded goods, capital flows, and real purchasing power. Economists therefore use the relative version which we discussed. According to the theory, the exchange rate between two countries is determined at a point which expresses the equality between the respective purchasing powers of the two countries. This is the purchasing power parity, which is a moving bar and not a fixed bar. The gold standard, thus with every exchange is price level is measured also changes total, calculate the equilibrium level. The purchasing power parity theory is illustrated in figure 4, where DD is the demand curve for foreign currency and SS is the supply curve of currency. OR is the rate of exchange of rupees per pound sterling, which is determined by their intersection at point E. So that the demand for the supply of foreign exchange equals zero quantity. Suppose the price level rises in India and remains constant in England. This makes Indian exports costly in England and imports from England relatively cheaper in India. As a result, the demand for pounds increases and the supply of pounds decreases. Now the demand curve shifts upward to the right to D and the supply curve to shift to SS1. The new equilibrium exchange rate is set at OR, rupees per pound, which represents the new purchasing power parity. The exchange rate rises by the same percentage as the Indian price level. The purchasing power curve shows that the relative change in the price level, the exchange rate tends to fluctuate along this curve above or below the normal exchange rate, but there is a limit up to which the purchasing power parity curve can move up and down. The upper and lower limits are set by the commodity export. Criticism of this theory. Defects in calculating price level. One of the serious defects of the theory is that of calculating the price level in the two countries. Thus, use of index number in calculation presents many difficulties such as the base year, coverage and method of calculation. Thus may not be the same in both countries. The two countries may not include the same type of commodities in calculating the index number. Such difficulties make the index number only a rough guide for measuring the price levels and thus fail to give the correct purchasing power parity between the two countries. Comparison of general price level, a difficult problem. According to the theory, the purchasing power parity between two countries is determined by comparing their general price levels, but the price level may be made up of intermittently trade plus internationally traded goods, not applicable to capital account. Another weakness of the purchasing power parity theory is that it applies to countries whose balance of payments is determined by the merchandise trade account. It is therefore not applicable to such countries whose exchange rate is influenced more by capital account. For the determination of the new equilibrium exchange rate, this is a serious defect because it is difficult to find the base year when the exchange rate was initially in equilibrium. Structural changes in factors. The theory is also based on the assumption that there have been no structural changes in the factors underlying the equilibrium in the base period. Such factors are changes in technology, resources, tastes, etc. This assumption is highly unrealistic because changes are bound to take place in these factors, which in turn are likely to affect exchange rate. Barter terms of trade changes. The theory assumes that the barter terms of trade do not change between the two trading countries. This assumption is unrealistic because the barter terms of trade constantly change due to changes in the demand for foreign goods, in the volume of external loans, in the supply of exported goods, in transport cost, etc. No free trade. The theory is based on the assumption of free trade and laissez-faire policy, but governments do not follow these policies these days. Rather, they impose a number of restrictions on the movements of goods between countries. Such trade restrictions are tariff, import quotas, customs duties, and various exchange control devices which tend to reduce the volume of imports. These in turn cause wide deviation between the actual exchange rate and the exchange rate set by the purchasing power parity. Only purchasing power parity does not determine exchange rate. The equilibrium exchange rate may not be determined by the purchasing power parity between the two countries. Rather, a sudden increase in the demand for goods of one country may raise the demand for its currency on the part of the other country. This will lead to a rise in the exchange rate, neglects of elasticities of reciprocal demand. According to Keynes, one of the serious defects of this theory is that it fails to consider the elasticities of reciprocal demand, in that the exchange rate is determined not only by change in the relative prices but also the elasticities of reciprocal demand between the two trading countries. It is one-sided. Ragnar Nargis points out that the theory is one-sided in that it is based exclusively on changes in relative prices and neglects all factors that influence the demand for foreign exchange. Despite these criticisms, Haberler finds the theory useful. According to him, while the price level of different countries may diverge, their price system are nevertheless interrelated and independent, although the relation need not be that the equality. Thank you.